Break, any station come in.
Yung breaker po, go ahead. 11, call sign, sir.
Thank you, sir. This is 4H1 EMQ po. This is EMQ from Amadeo Station, over.
Roger that, acknowledge. This is Alpha Lima, Cavite Station on the mobile.
Thank you, sir. Sir, can you give me update lang sa location mo, weather, and working condition mo?
Roger that, acknowledge. So now, ako po ay on mobile, stationary mobile here in Cavite City Public Market. And then, sa ngayon, sobrang init po ng ating weather condition ngayon dito. Napakataas ng humidity level. And working condition ko po is Motorola GM300 with power output of 45 watts. And then, super gainer antenna, over.
Magandang Saturday afternoon na naman po sa inyo mga ka-Try Nation. Ito na naman po ang inyong lingkod, si BB1. Welcome to Try to Contact. Yan po. So, kamusta na po ang inyong week? At ngayon po ay Sabado. At alam ko pong inaabangan nyo na naman itong kahindik-hindik at kakilakilabot na show na ito. Hindi po ba? Ayan. Kaya it's nice to see you everyone again. Although hindi ko kayo nakikita, pero nakikita nyo ako. Kitang-kita nyo naman, puro ako kawayan. Ayan, mamaya po ipapaliwanag ko sa inyo kung bakit ito ang polo ko. Ayan. Anyway, kamusta na po ang kalagayan ng panahon dyan sa inyong mga 2-0 o sa inyong mga location? Well, dito po sa Silang Cavite ngayon, medyo maulan po ng konti at makulimlim. Siyempre, dahil wala pong araw, hindi po siya sumikat ngayon. Baka tulog siya. Anyway, medyo malamig po, no? Kaya masarap pong magkape. At dahil dyan, sip muna tayo ng konting coffee. Ayan. Yun po, at naramdaman nyo pa po, naramdaman nyo ho ba yung lindol kahapon? Ayan. Medyo malakas po yung lindol kahapon. At marami pong nagkontakan. At isa po tayo sa nakipag-coordinate. Ayan, umaalog. Yung kapata, wag mo alugin. Yan. Hindi naman lumilindol, pero parang umaalog. Yan. Anyway, yun po, ano? Who's shaking? Yan. Who's shaking? Yun. Okay. Anyway, yun po, ano? So, yung kahapon pong lindol ay mayroong lakas na 6.3 ang kanyang magnitude. Yan po ay sa Calatagan, Batangas, kahapon ng alas 7:43 ng umaga. Ayan. So, napansin po namin nung lumilindol, yung chandelier po namin dito ay umaalog, ano? Ayan. Pero tinatanong nila kung nakakatakot daw ba at yung chandelier ay umaalog. Hindi po siya masyadong nakakatakot. Mas natakot po ako dun sa nagtatabas ng kawayan dun sa kapitbahay namin. Kasi, alam nyo naman, holiday ngayon, baka tuhugin ako. Ayan. Kita nyo kaya ako kawayan oh. Hindi Hawaiian kawayan, kundi Hawaiian shirt. Ayan. So yun po, no? At yun nga po, no? Sana safe po kayong lahat dyan sa inyong mga lugar at hopefully ay hindi muna pumutok si Taal, ano? Ayan, medyo nagbabadya pero hopefully po, pag-pray natin, wag naman po sana muna ngayon. Ayan. Bukas na lang. Joke lang. Ayan. Anyway, exciting po yung ating mga segment ngayon, ano? Lalong-lalo na dun sa nagkaroon lang po tayo kasi ng technical difficulties last time with Sir W3ZQZ. Pero ngayon po ay medyo ayos na po siya, no? Hopefully. Yan. Medyo dinownload na po namin yung mga kailangan nating ipakita upang tayo ay makinabang dun sa kanyang segment. And later on, meron po tayong magagandang dilag na ating i-interviewin sa ating featured ham for today. At sige po, dire-diretso na po tayo. At tayo ngayon ay dumako na. Teka muna. Yung SOP po natin, ayan, kailangan po natin ng tissue. Ayan, so, at alam niyo naman kung bakit. Nandiyan naman po si Sir ZQZ. At he's going to talk about some cables. What are the types of cables that are we going to use and we should use? And what's the difference between each others? Yan. So let's call on our very own Mr. W3ZQZ. Please come in.
Hey, hey.
Hey,
Good
sir.
afternoon there, Joey.
Good
And thanks for
afternoon, sir
having me on again.
ZQC. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fine, thank you. Doing okay.
Great.
And I'm just sitting here, just wondering what possibly could go wrong again based on
Yes, I
our
know.
technical difficulties of the last uh, 2 weeks here. But so far, so good. So we'll see what happens. That note. Uh,
All right.
and as far as the shaking is concerned, yeah, I was upstairs and I yelled down to my wife. I said, "Huh, do you feel that?" And she
Mm-hmm.
said, "No." And then after a couple sections, she said, "Yeah, I feel it now." uh, so the second floor there, uh, I think you can feel things a little bit earlier. So looks like I think
Yes.
overall everyone was okay,
Yeah,
despite
you're safe too,
the
right? You're doing fine
safe.
over
Yeah,
there.
everyone safe is fine. So that's good.
Great.
Well, uh, so hopefully this will be a little bit less painful here for all for the cabling. And as far as just touching and trying to wrap this up, as far as the coaxial cable uh, series that we've been doing here, and understanding the types of cable. Uh, Usually, most cables here, the preference for coaxial cable would be copper. And copper is the best conductor of electrical signals that we use today. And of course, gold and platinum aren't used for obvious reasons. There, who can afford that? So copper is the key to superior performance. Now, the more copper, the better. The best quality cables are 100% oxygen free copper, if possible. Now, as far as cost is concerned, you're going to pay for pure copper and 95%, what we call 95% or greater shielded cable. Now, most lower price cables here come in copper clad cables. Now we have um, a setting here, and we can probably zoom in for a bigger picture there. You can put me along. I can make that a little bigger there, Joey. There we go. So as we see, most lower price cables use copper clad steel. And see, that's really the main difference between a high price cable and lower price, generally speaking, aside from the various braided shields. And of course, copper clad aluminum is, of course, a fancy way of saying that it's electrically plated on with some through a process here. So, as far as the RF is concerned, as an RF signal travels along a cable, an increasing amount of the energy is absorbed into the dielectric or dissipated because of what we call DC resistance. Both contribute to attenuation. And of course, cable manufacturers give the specifications for that. And often aluminum, copper clad, CCA, have higher attenuation than pure copper cables. That's the thing you need to know. So there's a little bit more of a signal loss and data loss. That usually comes into play more for, let's say, Ethernet, which, um, as far as category 5, category 6 cables, I'm getting off a little bit, but just so you understand that some of these here, when it comes to copper clad aluminum, uh, particularly for Ethernet, they don't even meet the Telecommunications Association standard, International Electrical Commission, TIA, for standards at all. So in some countries here, they really go after this copper clad aluminum. particularly for Ethernet category 5 and 6. I'm sure you have someone else to discuss that too. With that said, though, for coaxial cable, given depending on the thickness, now let's see some other pictures here of the um, uh, aluminum, coaxial aluminum. Let's see if we can bring those up. Let's go to the aluminum, copper clad aluminum. I think we have two more picks, Joey, before we get to that standard. In fact, what you just saw is an example of the standard of what a cable should look like. Now, even with this high-end hardline cable, if you notice right in the center of that cable, the center conductor, you see the outer layer that's coated with copper, but right in the center would be thick aluminum, and in some cases steel. So that's sort of where the industry is going to for lower costs as the cost of copper goes up. Now, the advantages of copper clad aluminum is, of course, it's less expensive than copper wire. It's lighter than pure copper. And has higher conductivity than pure aluminum. Of course, if you try soldering aluminum cables, very difficult, nearly impossible. So a lot of this is coated with the copper to make it easier to work with. And so the electrical connections are considerably better than those of just pure aluminum. So the thing is with that here, we just have to be wary that if you're going to use that uh, for copper clad aluminum, the thicker the better, the thicker the better. I think we have some other examples of CCA here, if you can pull those up. So the thicker for the, depending on the application. So do your research. If it's aluminum versus copper for the same application, the CCA should be thicker than versus copper. Here's another example of copper cladded aluminum there. So copper right on the outside, and of course there's our aluminum. So again, it's good to know the type of cables that you have. For certain applications, especially in the commercial industry, it calls for pure copper. And we just want to make that note for pure copper cables for a number of reasons we're not going to bore you with. So again, that calls for you to do your research, know what types of cables you're working with, and so forth for that. And of course, ideally, if we go back to our first chart that I think you had up for the ideal cable. So, you know, we have different types of shields. Now, many of the cables, especially now, that's pretty well shielded. That braided shield looks pretty good right there. And normally when you have a shield that looks like that, a lot of cables don't even have the foil shield. So that is what probably would be an ideal cable to have. Your center conductor, the dielectric, which is made out of there's different types of dielectric here. We could probably spend half a day discussing those types of center conductor, whatever. We might save that for another episode. The foil shield, many don't have the foil shield, but if it's an acceptable braided shield, the thick, you can get by, especially on HF versus VHF, and of course the outer jacket. And of course, again, that's ideally. There's so many different variations there. I believe you have one that's copper foils, so to speak, shield, and so forth. So the bottom line is for coaxial cable, also know your power applications. For if you're running high power, then do your research on whether you're going to use whether that can take if it's copper clad versus copper, of course, for the same given application. Again, beef it up for CCA. And there's a prime example, that last one that you just showed, of I had a foil shield, and also if we go back to the one before that, let's go back to, and it had a nice foil shield, but the braided shield was a little bit thin, as you see. And thank you for highlighting that there. That braided shield is not much going on there. So really the foil shield is what kind of helps compensates for that then, and that's where manufacturers save money too. That's the difference between a cheaper cable versus something that's from 25 cents 50 cents a foot versus $1 $2 or $3 per foot, is that braiding, and also whether it's pure copper or CCA, generally speaking. Now you might have some that want to dispute, but overall that's the difference. Now we go to our next picture here that you had up. Appreciate that. So you can pull your, that's why I sent them to you. You can pull them up much faster here. So, and ideally, there you go with the shield foil. And as you see, the braiding is thicker on that note. So a lot of times with certain manufacturers, I'm not going to mention any countries, but you probably can get the idea, depending on where you get it from. They really skimp sometimes with the braided shield more so. So, you know, recommendations is what, once again, is to be able to do your research, usually for coaxial cable, mainly US brands, exceed specifications for a given application. So um, and that's really it, more or less, for our coaxial cable presentation here. And that's it. And of course, you can write into the show here for any questions or concerns or thoughts regarding a particular subject.
Okay, so thank you so much, Sir W3ZQZ, for that wonderful insight of the different types of cables. So, may it be from the country, from the PRC, then the USA, Germany, or some other country that produce wonderful types of cables. So it's up to you to how much can you spare for your cable, but of course you get what you pay for. So keep that in mind. So thank you so much again, Sir W3ZQC, for that spot on presentation of yours. Thank you very much. So again, what are the things that we're going to see for another episode, Sir ZQZ?
For future episodes, of course, I think we just about beat cables up. That I'm sure we may have touched on something else, but of course we're going to segue to more on types of antennas and
Yes, yes.
um, something called RF choke balance and how they work and so forth. And right now I'm constructing something here.
Ooh,
I'll let you
is
know if
that
it
the
works.
balloon?
It was too much work here.
Yeah.
We'll be calling RF choke slash Valen. basically, in short, with coaxial cable, it has a tendency, depending on the situation, to radiate. You don't want your coax to radiate. You just want the antenna to radiate.
Yes.
And so devices like this here prevent feed line radiation from occurring. So we'll see, to be continued before and after on it. That's my one of my projects. So usually if you buy one for a dipole, and I should have just have one so you can see it perhaps next week.
Soon.
You know, we're looking at 800 to 1,500 pesos for a typical dipole balun, or you can do what was featured a few weeks ago, called an ugly balun, when you wrap, which is not really a balun, it's what we call radio frequency choke, a couple wraps of coax around the PVC core, and that helps with the radiation there as well. And and what happens is, in short, the currents on the coaxial cable are unbalanced. The antenna is balanced. So to balance everything out, that's what you have these devices for, these contraptions there. So that's it.
All right. So again, thank you very much, Sir WTZQ. You wanna shout out someone or think to someone else?
Well, we thank everyone, the team, and we appreciate all the support we've been getting as regards the show here. And of course, we appreciate your wonderful hosting here, Lily, as well. So thanks for having me. And until next time.
All right. So again, thank you so much, W3ZQZ. And let's give him a round of applause. And we will see you next week or next episodes. Yeah, I know you're kind of busy. Yeah. All right. So yan po. That's W3ZQZ. Again, thank you so much for your insight today for the cables. Sorry po medyo nag-nosebleed po tayo. Teka, iinom lang tayo ng kape, pampadami ng energy. Ayun, yan. Maraming salamat po, Sir ZQC, sa iyong napakagandang presentasyon sa amin. Yan, thank you very much. Yan. So ngayon, siyempre, kailangan na po nating puntahan yung ating susunod naman na segment. At alam ko na talaga namang sabik na kayong makita yung mga naggagandahang babae na ating hindi naman babae, naggagandahang mga dilag. Yan. So bago po muna yan, ito po muna ang aking intro. Ayan po ang ating featured ham radio operator for today ay walang iba kundi ang mga naggagandahang dilag na si Miss Jelly Fernandez at Ma'am Jessica Cope. Ayan, magandang hapon po sa inyong dalawa.
Good afternoon po.
Magandang hapon, Sir Joey, BB1.
Magandang hapon din po sa inyo. Talaga namang kasyang-kasya tayo sa camera, ano? Ay! Yeah, medyo lumayo tayo ng konti. Pero ano, yan.
Muntik na hindi magkasya, wait.
Ayun nga, yun. So, magandang hapon po sa inyong dalawa at welcome po sa Try to Contact. At nagpapasalamat po kami at napaunlakan niyo po yung aming invitasyon. Bagaman medyo rush ng konti, sabi niya. Ayan. So, syempre, kaya tayo narito, syempre, interviewin natin kayo, no? Ayan. So, ang una po nating tanong ay bakit po kayo nag-invest ng radio unit at saan po niyo ito gagamitin, Ma'am Jenny?
Okay, thank you po. So, sabi nga nila, communication is a virtue, kaya talagang pinaghandaan ko na mag-invest ng radio para mas mapadali yung communication between ng ng mga ka-team ko. At kung saan ko po ito gagamitin, tayo po ay nagva-volunteer bilang sa disaster relief. At magagamit din ito kahit na sa mismong bahay or dito sa compound. Dahil imbis na tawagin mo yung nag-garden na kakain na, tawagin mo lang siya through radio. Hindi na kailangang sumigaw. Yun po.
Yun, galing. Malupit pala yung gamit ng radio mo, ha? Siyempre, excited ako dyan kapag manananghali na tayo. May tumatawag na, break, lunch for everyone. Yan, oh. Yan, thank you very much, Ma'am Jelly. Siyempre, si Ma'am Jessica naman. Ma'am Jessica, same question po. Ano pang size ng bewang nyo?
Ikaw talaga, Sir Joey. Depende kung anong buwan. Kapag ganito mga baka-bakasyon, edi alam mo na.
Yung kanina kinukwento ko, ganun nga yung nangyari sa akin. Hindi ako natakot sa lindol, natakot ako sa nagtatabas ng kawayan. Yeah. So anyway, yun po Ma'am Jessica, bakit po kayo nag-invest ng radio unit at saan din po ito ginagamit?
Actually, Sir Joey, bata pa lang ako, nakikita ko na yung mga radio na yan. Tapos, ang impression ko, wow, cool. Yan. Tapos, alam ko lang yung copy, Roger. Tapos, hindi ko akalain na darating yung panahon na mabibigyan tayo ng assignment sa disaster relief, sa local disaster. And kailangan ng radio para mabilis maka-action lalo na kapag may mga emergency.
Yun. Nung bata din ako, alam mo yan, thank you so much Ma'am Jessica. Nung bata ako, naalala ko din eh. Hindi lang si Roger ang nakilala ko dyan eh. Si Mike, nakilala ko rin. At si Tess.
Tama.
Sabi na, Mike,
yes.
Tess.
Mike, Tess.
Ayan, kaya malupit yung radio na yan eh. No? Ayan, thank you so much. At si Ma'am Jelly naman ulit, second question. Paano po kayo natulungan ng radio unit?
So, tulad nga ng sabi ni Ate Jessica kanina, malaking bagay ang radio unit para mas mapadali yung trabaho natin sa pagresponde. For example po, habang pumupunta pa lang po tayo doon sa lugar na tutulungan natin, nagpaplano na po yung team or nag-uusap-usap na po sila gamit ang radio para makagawa na ng plano. Pagdating po doon, i-implement na lang po yung plano. Dahil doon, nakasave po tayo ng time at naging mas smooth yung gawain natin.
Yun, ang galing talaga ng radio unit na yan. Ano? Ikaw naman, Ma'am Jessica Cote, ayan, same question. Paano po kayo natulungan ng radio unit? Wala na yung size.
Ako very helpful, lalo na nung one time na meron kaming pinuntahang lugar, tapos convoy kaming sasakyan. So, hindi ako familiar dun sa lugar. Kung walang radio, mahirap masundan yung mga kasunod mo, yung ka-convoy mo. Actually, nawala nga ako doon eh, hindi ko nasundan yung pero mas mawawala ako kung wala akong radio. Hindi ko alam kung to turn left na o to turn right.
Yun. So, yun pala yung nagawa ng radio sa'yo, ano? So, talagang, actually, hindi mo natatanong, ganyan din yung nangyari sa amin nung nakaraan. Ano? Nung medyo mabilis kasi yung driver namin, nauna siya, hindi ko na maabutan. So, ni-radio check namin, sabi namin, magkita tayo dun sa Starbucks, mag-drive through na kayo at ibilin nyo kami. Thank you so much po, Ma'am Jessica. So third question naman, Ma'am Jessica. Anong radio units po ang gamit nyo at ano po ang masasabi nyo sa performance ng radio unit na ginagamit nyo?
Yung gamit ko ngayon is yung Cygnus UV88. Yan. So satisfied naman ako sa performance. Hindi naman kasi ako professional, pero maka-communicate ako, happy na ako. So, very happy ako dito sa unit. Hindi siya ganun kamahal, pero sulit naman.
Ayun, thank you very much po. Ayan, Ma'am Jessica. Si Ma'am Jelly naman. Ayan, ano pong radio unit ang gamit niyo, Madam Jelly, at ano po masasabi niyo sa performance?
So, same with Ate Jessica. Cygnus UV88 din po yung gamit ko at matindi to, sir. Nakikipagsabayan siya sa ibang unit. Tsaka balita ko, abot ito hanggang Pampanga. Pero siguraduhin lang na paraw kayo ng frequency. Sayang nga lang, hindi siya umabot ng Pangasinan.
Oo nga. Tawagan mo na si Sir Limps, no? Ayan. Kamusta naman po yung performance niyan, ma'am? Bukod dun sa malayo, Kamusta naman yung reliability niya?
Maaasahan siya, hindi siya madaling malobat, basta naka-full charge syempre. Kaya malinaw yung dating. Kahit na hindi sila magkakapareho ng signals or hindi pareho sila ng unit, kapag nagbato ka ng
Yung ano?
nagbato ka na.
Bumato ka, ano? Yeah.
Huwag mo ibato yung radyo.
Talagang sulit.
Yun. Thank you very much po, Ma'am Jelly. Talaga namang appreciate namin yung inyong insight. Ano? Ang ganda pala nitong ano ko. Meron akong 2 angel. Oh. Nagkagandahan mga angel. Isang sexy at isang sobrang sexy. Ayan. So thank you very much po sa inyong dalawa. No? Ayan, sa inyong ginawang pagkanari
Thank
nito.
you po.
Pero bago tayo magtapos, syempre, meron po ba kayong gustong pasalamatan o batiin? Ma'am Jessica, meron ba kayong gustong pasalamatan o batiin?
Nagpapasalamat po ako sa mga overseer namin for trusting us sa aming assignment yan. Tuwang-tuwa kami na nakakatulong kami sa mga kapatid natin.
Yun. Thank you so much po sa inyong dedication and sacrifices, Ma'am Jessica. At meron po kayong gustong shoutout?
Ako naman po, nagpapasalamat po ako sa pag-invite nito, BB1. At happy anniversary sa inyong dalawa ni Ate Vanji. Waiting for the palitson.
Huwag kang mag-alala, malapit na ako magpalitson. Ayan. Thank you so much, Ma'am Jelly. Ayan. Meron ba kayong gustong i-shoutout? Ikaw, Ate Jessica, may shoutout. Sige, ikaw na, Jelly.
Yung mga in-invite ko dyan, sila Kaholo Couple, tsaka nanonood din ko sa atin si Kuya Lims Piñano from Pangasinan, hindi umabot yung signals ko. Pasensya na sir, kailangan ng Motorola.
Yun naman pala, oh. Yun! Alam na this! Sana all! Yan, ikaw naman, Ma'am Jessica, meron ka bang gustong i-shoutout? Baka yung, alam mo na.
Shout out na lang ako dito sa mga kasama ko sa Amadeo.
Ayun, sa Amadeo. Yun. Again, yan po si Ma'am Jelly Fernandez at si Ma'am Jessica Cope. Again, thank you so much po sa inyong dalawa. At wag po kayong aalis. Tayo ay babalik. Ayan, maraming salamat na naman po sa ating mga featured ham guests ngayon o featured ham radio operator na si Ma'am Jelly Fernandez at Ma'am Jessica Cope. Ayan, thank you again so much po sa inyong pagpapaunlak at we appreciate so much po yung inyong pagkanalo ito. Ganyan din po naman, thank you very much again kay Sir W3ZQC for your insight for different types of people. At dyan na naman po nagtatapos yung ating try to contact. At bago po tayo matapos, syempre, kailangan po muna tayong mag-shoutout sa ating mga nanonood. Kamukha ni General Kaholo, maulan dito sa amin sa bansa namin sa Amadeo, Cavite, BB1. Ayan. Alam niyo naman dito sa probinsya namin sa California, medyo malamig po dito at dry. Ayan. So, kamusta ka na dyan, General Kaholo? Hello po. And then si Tol Ronel Terona, present. Yun, no? Thank you so much, brother. Shoutout din po sa mga taga Bosch user group. Yung mga katropa po natin dyan. Ganyan din po naman ang Bosch Philippines. Si Sir William Go at si Sir Golden Moranan. At yung mga angels po natin dyan. Ganyan din po naman sa Cabuanet, si June, si Sunny, and si Giselle, si Jojo D, yung ating kasais. Ayan. Kapata din naman natin yan. At marami pa pong iba dyan. Ano? Ayan. Shout out po sa inyo. Ganon din po naman kay Ma'am Telma Kaholo. Ayan. Siya po yung butihing may bahay ni General Kaholo. Wow! Hi, Jessica and Jelly. Ayan. Tapos may laping-laping pa. Ayan, no? Nagbato ka ng tinapay. Joke message pala. Yun. May joke pa siya. Oh. Ayan. Matagal na yon, di ba, BB1? Ano daw yung matagal na? Yun, yung mga joke natin kanina. Ayan, nandito din po si Paul Michael Angelo Robles. Ayan, sa aking pamangkin. Shoutout po sa Robles family. Hello po sa mga Robles family, lalo na dyan sa mga Bulacan. Hello po sa inyo. Ganyan din po naman si B... Sino ba to? Si BB10. Ayun. Shoutout kay BB10, EC16, natulog habang nanonood. Okay. Yan. So nanonood daw po si BB10, sabi ni Kapatang Elena. Hello po kay Kapatang Elena. Ayan. Sabi doon pa-shoutout din po kay Nathan Andres. Ayan, nanonood from Battle Family. Ayan. So yan po yung ating mga shoutout ngayon. Ngayon din po naman si Abraham Garcia, si Ma'am Santos Tives, yan, si Jesse Vargas. Yan po yung ating mga manonood. Yan, hello po sa inyong lahat. At nagpapasalamat din po ako muli sa inyo, mga Tri-Nation. Maraming salamat po. Ingat po tayo, lalo na sa mga aftershocks at medyo maulan, sa mga nagbabiyahe at sa mga kumakain. Kaya alam po holiday po ngayon, kaya ingat-ingat po sa ating mga blood pressure. Yan, masyadong matataba yung kinakain. Yan, ingat na po. Pwede po dessert. Ayan, mag-dessert na lang tayo. Yun. And then, salamat din po sa bumubuo ng TryPH Media, kay El Capitan, El Presidente, ayan, si Sir ENI, gayon din po naman kay Sir EMQ, kay Sir BM1, Victor Mike 1, Rome Rob, at kay din po naman kay Delta Juliet Mike, o si Direct JM. Yan. Then, salamat din po sa aking family, yun nga po, si BB10, PC16, gayon din po naman kay Kapatang Elena. Ano bang call sign ni Kapatang Elena? Kasi kung may BB10, pwede na siguro siyang BB-ik. Ayan, kasi maliit na Joey, kaya BB-ik. Ayan. Yun. And then, salamat din po. Kamusta po dyan sa mga family sa Cabanatuan City, kay Mother, mga utol ko. Ayan, si Noemi, si Josie. Hello sa inyo dyan. Hello po. Ganun din po naman kay Tita Annie at ang kanyang sobrang gorgeous mother, si Ma'am Escalita. At ganoon din po naman sa Panahon Family. Hello po sa inyo dyan. Ayan. At saka sa mga angels dito sa ating home. And then, meron pa ba tayo nakalimutan? Ayan. So yung ating pong mga partners. Ayan, pinapasalamatan po natin yung ating mga platinum partners. Ang Ralph Consulting, ang Tagaytay Guide, ang RJ Brom Consulting, ang ATI Calabarzon, ang JRM Consulting, ang HAS. Ganyan din po naman ang The Happy Giving Trading Company. Yan po, sila po ang isa sa mga tumatangkilik ng Salad Master. Yan. Ganyan po si Sir Bernard Supetran at ang aking paborito na Pau de Oro, ang toasted siopaw ng bayan. At syempre, kailangan may panulak, yung Bon Happy Tea. At syempre, kailangan natin ng masigla. Yan, Life Extension Philippines. Ayan, nakita niyo pa si Ma'am Jelly Fernandez. Kontakin niyo lang po siya dito po sa ating TryPH Media. Ganoon din po naman ang LMP Auto Care, ang SafeTech.ph, ang The Purple Whisk. Yan, ano pa lasa nitong Purple Whisk na to? Ang RDY Marine Electronics, at ang paborito ko, Aloha Funeral Homes. Yan. Oy, shoutout nga po pala kay Alfa Romeo. Ganoon din po naman sa kanyang misis, say 411 daw ba yun? Ayun, si Sir Anthony. Hindi. Alpha Lima. Ayan, hello po sa inyo. Ayan. Ganoon din po naman kay Sir Gerald Caholo. Yun na nga. Yun ba yung ating mga Yun na nga. Wala na naman po tayo. Yun nga. At yun pala, si Sir RDY. Ayan. Namimiss nyo na po si Sir RDY, no? Later on the episodes or weeks, mapapanood na po natin sa iyan. Ayan. So, yan na naman po ang natatapos yung ating episode for today. At syempre, ito na naman po ang inyong lingkod, si BB1, saying over and out.
Break, any station come in.
Yung breaker po, go ahead. 11 call sign, sir.
Thank you, sir. This is 4H1 EMQ po. This is EMQ from Amadeo Station, over.
Roger that. Acknowledge. This is Alpha Lima, Cavite Station on the mobile.
Thank you, sir. Sir, can you give me location mo, weather, and working condition mo.
Roger that, acknowledge. So now, ako po ay on mobile, stationary mobile here in Cavite City Public Market. And then, sa ngayon, sobrang init po ng ating weather condition ngayon dito. Napakataas ng humidity level. And working condition ko po is Motorola GM300 with power output of 45 watts. And then super gainer antenna. Over.